Welcome to Compression, the quest to $100 million in just 1 year. Join me, your host, Logan Freeman, in this one-of-a-kind interactive podcast experience where I am on a quest to compress 3 years of achievement and production into 12 months. And no, the answer is not to just work harder. I'm bringing you not only ideas and concepts that are complete at the theoretical level, but they're also effective at the applied level. Look, guys, knowledge is not power. It is potential power. Knowledge plus massive strategic action equals power. We're talking about strategy, systems, accountability, all in real time. This is Compression. And we're back for another episode of the Compression Podcast. And I have to say, man, we are getting ready to kind of, I think embark on this sprint, and it's October 23rd right now, meaning, hopefully we've been sprinting previously, but I feel like I've been kind of planning and then working on more like a 60-day sprint. But I think the planning part is a part of this sprint, right? It's the mindset piece. I've found myself gravitating towards some mindset kind of training. And I don't know if it's just like my previous, experience that helps me get in the right headspace, but what continues to come to mind is this separation season and giving me the opportunity to do the hard things. And I take to heart what we said on the last show. And it's when it starts to get hard and it starts to get difficult and you start to feel nervous and you got that anxiety kind of creeping up on you. You can really reframe that to be a positive. And but you have to know how to deal with it. It's not for the untrained mind, so to speak. And this hit me yesterday when Taylor was, putting something on. We were, both kids went down for a nap, which never happens, which was amazing. I went and hit some golf balls and she just rested. But she's like, man, I'm going to put something on that I can just fall asleep to. So she found this thing called Psychic Kids. And it followed these kids that, can really communicate with spirits or whatnot. And I'm not sure I necessarily believed in it, but it was pretty interesting. And at the end of the day, though, these older kids were mentoring these younger kids on how to deal with what they were feeling and what they were going through. And they reframed the ability to talk to spirits as a positive. It's not something that you should be made fun of or bullied. Or should control you. You have to control your abilities or they will control you. And it's like the same thing for me. I have this ability to get super disciplined, super focused, and really kind of take it to the next level in certain times. I'm trying to play at that level all the time. But if you reframe this kind of opportunity that I have here, instead of thinking out of it as a big challenge or stressful event, then I can kind of hone in all of that energy for a positive. And I think back to me being like my father a lot in regards to being able to really kind of just focus down and just kind of get to work and get really obsessed with certain things. If you know how to control that and direct it to the right area of your life, it can be extreme positive. And so that's kind of the thread that I've been feeling most recent. And I'll say this too, is like, I watch what I listen to on podcasts really quickly closely, because I gravitate towards what I need in the moment, in that period of time that I'm in. And it's always a feeling. It's a gut feeling. Like I never know what I'm going to listen to when I pull the Audible app up or Spotify up. And recently it's been, okay, how do we finish strong? How do we compress time? And the one word that is going to come in the thread that you guys are going to get, I think, out of this episode today is confidence. And confidence is the first C of being a compressor for a reason. It was in the icon talk, integrity, confidence. And it's so important. I put a little kind of equation together, and I'll talk about that. I'm going to call that the C3 equation, and listen to the end so you guys can hear what the C3 equation is. But it's three C's that will allow you to really start focusing on confidence. And I hear Ed Milet talking about confidence, Peter Voogd, Jerome Myers, all these, really successful dudes are talking about this confidence thing. And I think it's so important because, I meet with somebody, and and a prime example is this builder, and we'll talk about this, but T and I went and looked at some land that we would like to purchase at some point to build our dream home on. It's right in the location that we want to be in. And I show up, and I got this builder who's been building for 20 plus years, and the rumor has it is that he's building Patrick Mahomes' house less than a mile from the land that we're looking at, which is pretty cool. But and I meet with this real estate agent who's been in the business for longer than I've been alive, and Taylor and I show up, and they're like, "Who are these kids?" It's a Thursday afternoon at lunchtime, and what are these kids doing? Looking at land, talking about building a house, and but then I start speaking, and we start communicating, and they're like, oh my gosh, like this is a real thing. These guys can do this, and they know what they're talking about, and it's just fun because the way that I'm going to help you guys think through confidence, it can go to every area of your life, and it has to go through every area of your life. You have to be confident. And I think the one mistake or challenge that I see from most individuals is they don't have a very high level of confidence, and they have an outward appearance that they want to make sure people see, but they don't have a strong self-efficacy and a self-confidence that really roots you in successful behaviors. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. Obviously, we've been on the staycation, so give everybody a little bit of an update. We canceled our Mexico trip for multiple reasons, but the main one being I think Taylor and I just needed some time together, and going on that trip and being a parent 24/7 with two young kids did not sound like very much of a refuel and a recharge kind of situation. And so we canceled, and we said, hey, we're going to do a staycation. So we planned out every single day something exciting for us to do together and to spend time together. And I think that was really an important decision that we made. And I'll talk a little bit about that as well, my man. So I've been going on a little bit of a rant, just getting started here. But I think the thread for today is confidence, is refueling and recharging, because I think that is so important. I mean, I run hard, man. I mean, I was talking to somebody the other day, and they're like, man, your schedule just sounds exhausting. And it is exhausting. Don't get me wrong, but I wouldn't have it any other way, because it helps me squeeze every drop out of the day. But Jerome, my man, you haven't even said hi yet, so I'm gonna give you a chance, brother. How you doing this morning, man?
Amazing, man. Good to be with you. These early morning sessions are really enjoyable for me. It's a great way to start the day. Excited about you and Taylor reconnecting.
Yeah,
And I think you gotta, if you're not intentional about that, that'll get away from you so fast. And
yeah,
your whole relationship will be about your kids. And when they leave, because that's what we want as parents, them to go off and be productive citizens in the world who are independent, and you're trying to figure out who this stranger is living in your house. And so you guys are doing a lot of the right things, and I'm super excited about it. You mentioned your dad, and I have the same. I don't even. I'll call it an innate ability. I'll call it a superpower. So, this propensity to be an addict, like to like obsess on the thing, and we have to choose what we use
right.
that superpower with, and it can be used for good or it can be used for evil. And so, you've been using it for good ever since, as far as I can remember in your story. And,
Yeah.
I, part of the reason why I don't partake in substance abuse, or I don't want to say abuse, but in, in consciousness altering, um, conscious altering substances
Right.
is because of I know that exists in me, right?
Yep.
And so I'm really, really particular about what I do with consumption,
Yeah.
because I'll just fixate on it. So, for those out there who, that you've got an ability to really focus in on things and maybe over consume them, be really, really careful about what you're consuming through your eyes, ears, and mouth.
Yep. And prime example is last night, we went to Cheesecake Factory, took the kids and ordered one of those pieces of Godiva, cheesecake at the end. And we were leaving and the waitress, she was so nice. She was a mom herself. She's like, "Hey, don't you want to take this, cheesecake with you?" And I was like, "No, it will stay here on the table. I had 2 bites, and if it comes home with me, it will be in my belly, which I don't need by the end of the day. I do not have the self-control to say no to that delicious piece of cheesecake that will be calling me." And she said, "Yeah, I bring it home quite a bit, and my husband says he literally can hear it calling him out of the refrigerator." And so we've talked a lot about controlling your environment and making sure that those types of things stay out of it, right? And I think that's a prime example of that. So couldn't agree more. And those things aren't going to serve you long term. And I can't stress this enough, and I have to stress this to myself all the time, is what feels good in the moment is not going to feel good the next day. And Jesse Itzler always says, remember tomorrow. Remember tomorrow. And those 2 words have been ringing true, helping me make better decisions. So setting the intention for this week for me, obviously knowing that I wasn't necessarily going to be in the office working all the time, but still kind of plugging in at 3:30 till 5:30 before the kids and Taylor wake up. I wanted to make sure that I was doing a few things, and I wrote this down in my journal: was having faith, being confident, trusting the process, focusing on who, not how, letting go of work, being there for T and the kids, being present and focused on love and patience. And I think I've done that pretty well. A little bit of a loss, I would say, is not being able to completely detach because I'm here and we have so much going on at work. And I'm realizing too that I'm the catalyst for a lot of things. And not only the starter, I am really, I've really stepped up my game on implementing and finishing. And as a business owner, when everything starts and ends with you, but you don't have who's, you're only focused on the hows. Sometimes it's really easy to try to own all of that, but then when you start having a team, you have to be able to delegate some of these things. And what was really cool to see the process is a few folks in our company really kind of step up this week, and I'm going to talk about that, especially when the wins come to when we start talking about the wins. But habit tracker this week, 57 out of 59, 97% on the habit tracker this week. And just some things that you guys have probably heard me say quite a bit is obviously prayer, saying no to sin and yes to virtue, faith, hope, and love, prudence, temperance, justice, and fortitude. And you can use those virtues if you're not a Christian, that's fine. They're Stoic principles as well. Stoics had them before the Christians did. So go back to, Marcus Aurelius and all of those guys. They were not Christians themselves. So, but that's where those virtues come from. It is a guiding principle of my life, and can be of anybody's life if you really want to live a life of value. Make energizing choices, get moving and work out, being present and focused on the family, who not how, read, skill up and level up, network building, prioritize and execute, and leading with courage and stoicism. Those were the things that I was focused on this week, and I hit 57 out of 59 of those, and that makes me really proud, because here's why. knowing, and we've talked a lot about this, knowing that the system is on and not focused on just results all the time, because you don't know when they're going to come per se. But especially with you, when you're in weeks like I am right now, focusing on that system and making sure you're doing the right activities will lead to results. When I look back 90 days ago, I can look back to my journals and say, what was I focused on? And then the yields are there now, right? And so I think that's really important, is to know and feel confident that you have your system going. Now, the system has to be created, and it has to be, cultivated throughout the process. But when you know it's on and you know you're working towards it, what's exciting is knowing that 90 days from now or 60 days from now, the results that we're going to have. And that's the equation that we can continue to talk about. X plus Y equals Z, right? And if you can figure out X and Y, you will start to really reap the rewards of Z, so to speak, in that equation. So, some big aha moments, or we'll start with wins first, because I think that's an important thing. Obviously, taking a week and spending time with Taylor one-on-one has been incredible. I have recharged and refueled a little bit. Body battery has been up between 80 and 100 every single day, which is not normal for me. Getting good sleep has been really good. And energy from the standpoint of not just physical energy, but mental energy, and when I look at the mountain I'm about to climb, it seems insurmountable, right? It's like Mount Everest is standing in front of me, and every day I'm trying to put one foot in front of the other. But it takes a lot of mental energy to have the confidence and the integrity and the perseverance to continue to step up that ladder in that mountain and climb that thing every single day. But I feel like I've got a good mental headspace right now. I feel like I have clarity on a lot of different fronts, which is creating congruency, which is important. Some other wins this week, I'll say this. We have some big strategic initiatives that I have been working diligently on. And I'm really excited because I've been asking Jerome, what business do I need to start or create, or where's this new revenue stream going to come from? And I've taken some big steps on that. I can't announce it quite yet, but I'm focusing on the who's and not the how's. And I've made the pitch to two who's to join me. And these are top producers in the field that, if I can aggregate these resources in the right way, give the folks what they need to really succeed at a high level, I think there's a way for me to create a multiple 7-figure business inside of my business already, which is very exciting for me. And what I'm trying to figure out, what I'm trying to create, is the ability in any market to be able to create revenue. And so there's a way to do that. And I'm excited to say that I made some big strides on that, and more to come on this, you guys. But I have a unique ability to put people together, give them what they need to succeed, and then obviously benefit from that as well. And it's going to be a unique thing that I'm creating or trying to create, and I think we're getting really close on that, which is very exciting. So that's a huge win. The staycation I've talked about, getting moving. I've hit 60,000 steps already, and it's not even Saturday. And so Monday through Friday, I've hit 60,000 steps, man. I've had this body moving. I feel really good. My back is in really good shape. I've been stretching out, and I feel very good physically, which is awesome. And that's a big important piece of, when you're not feeling good physically, it's easy not to feel good mentally. And so I've been focused on that quite a bit, working out. I haven't ate the best this week because I'm kind of on staycation, but I've tracked everything, and I've stayed under 3,000 calories every day, which for me is good, especially on a vacation. Haven't drank much, which is really good as well. I'll say this, in regards to FTW, I've talked a little bit about the wins, but there's a few that I want to kind of point out here as well. We had our first round of actual quarterly reviews with some employees this week, and I had to do that, and we had some good learnings from that. I obviously was in charge of our marketing director's review, and then our investor relations person's review as well, and learned a lot from that. And one thing that came out of this is we have to really be focused on the FTW culture as principals. And having 12 or 13 employees now, it's a real thing, and it's going to be a thread that's going to continue to come up in the future weeks. But that was some really good feedback. We had some great quarterly reviews. Ops are improving. Oh my gosh, they are improving so much, which is great. And what I mean by that is just construction, collections, just, property management, asset management. We're getting to a really good spot on that. I think what we do well is find the right deals, which is important, but we're starting to become some really strong operators in the space. And I realize when I talk to other guys and gals in the space, they don't know a tenth of what our team collectively knows. And, and people keep asking me, what makes you guys different? I'm like, well, let's talk about after a deal closes, what are you doing? And then I have 12 Monday boards that is basically our project management software. And I'm like, what systems and processes do you have in place for all of these things? And, most of the time it's none. And so, I show different people what we do after deals close, how we get through due diligence, how we work with agency lenders and different banks, how we go about cost segregation, how we do the transition, how we're making sure that the residents of our places and our properties are feeling, like that the owners actually care about the properties that they're purchasing. All these things, man. I mean, I just feel like we're getting to a really good spot on the operations piece of this, which is awesome. Who, not how, man. I will say this: our investor relations side of the business, I believe will be top notch. And here's why. I've spent probably 2 weeks now thinking about what investor relations actually is. And I wrote a definition of investor relations, which I'm going to read to you really quickly. Got to find it real quick because I sent this up to myself I might not be able to find it actually, but I can remember it. It's investor relations is creating, cultivating, and curating relationships with our investors that allow us to provide reporting and build relationships. And that's the dumbed down version. I have a nice long version of this, but then it took that and said, okay, what's the process for us? Right now we have 1,200 to 1,500 investors kind of in this pipeline, but how do I start to actually understand what these people are looking for, and then how we pair up kind of all of the content that we've got in the right way, track everything. So first step was to work on and learning and utilizing the sales CRM and active campaign, utilizing automation, lead scoring functions of that software, and then creating these stages of the investor pipeline. And so I've created 6 stages of an investor pipeline that will have tasks and tags and correlating content for each one of them. Then we're going to work through all of the pay-per-click advertising leads that we have that have come into the fruition. Is about 450 over the last 3 months, which is really awesome. And then I'm working to the inbound leads that come into us through the website, through LinkedIn, all of those different things. And then I'm codifying all of these contacts that we currently have in our investor portal and in our CRM, and getting every single one of them into the right corresponding stage. So this is very interesting because we'll be able to actually have a snapshot now on our investor relations of every single investor and where they're at based on the activities that they've taken, that we've taken, the content that they've received, and the conversations that we've had, and be able to give them a lead score. So we'll be able to take these 1,200 people and say, hey, we've got 200 in level 1. We've got 400 in level 2. We've got 500 in level 3, and then, and so on and so on, which will allow us to know who to reach out to and build better relationships with these people and be able to raise more capital and serve these people at a higher level, because each person will be getting tailored content to that. So it's very exciting for me on that. And we have somebody to own that process as well, because that is a job in and of itself right there. So I'm excited about that, focusing on who's, not hows. I don't know if this is an actual win or not, but it's an update. We let go of our acquisitions person last week. And so that person is no longer with us. And so I think that going through that process, making sure that we did it the right way, communicating what we need to, and helping that person obviously get into a role where they can be successful and all these different things is a big win for us as principals, to make sure that we have the right people in the right seats. And so, that wasn't easy to go through, but it was something that needed to happen. And so I'm hoping for the best for that person. And I'm excited to say that I think that we have a process to create even more deal flow. And I'll talk about that a little bit later on different episodes, but we went through that process as well. So that was a win for us to at least go through that process and make sure that we were, hitting that head on, which was really important, man. So those are all the big wins from this week. I mean, I can't speak to some of these because we're not quite there. It's not ready to be out there in the ethos yet, but some really big initiatives that we've been working on are starting to come to fruition, which I'm really excited, and it's going to help our business out, big time. And the last thing that I'll say about this is, I needed to get, I think, an additional 10 million of acquisitions under contract in 2 to 3 weeks, which is not an easy task. Well, we're going to PSA on 2 projects, a $13.5 million project and a smaller $1 million project. And so, I'm counting, since we are partnering on the larger project with somebody, I'm counting half of that. So 6.75 plus another million. So we're at 7.75. So I still need to get another sizable $3 to $10 million project under contract in the next week and a half to 2 weeks, which is not going to be easy. But we've made progress on the acquisitions piece, and our pipeline is extremely full. And in pipeline of projects that are not on market. And so we've created a four-headed approach to acquisitions going forward, which I'll also be able to talk about sometime in the near future as well. I don't want to necessarily say, because I'm not sure I want somebody to steal my steal my idea. It's not stealing, because
they can't implement it though.
Yeah,
I mean, that's the thing. Even if you give it to them, they can't implement it. It's fine.
Yeah, that's true. So we've got a four-headed approach. It's new asset classes. So I've had some neighborhood retail and office and some industrial brought to me recently, which is very interesting. So we've got new asset classes. We have, and I think we've actually talked about this anyways. We've got recapitalization of current portfolios. So finding somebody like myself that maybe has been in the business for 5 to 7 years and they're getting ready to exit projects, finding those right people and saying, hey, instead of exiting 100%, would you like to stay in as a GP? We come in and recap your portfolio. The third is continuing to find, other operators in different markets that operate like us to bring our suite of services to. And the last one is continuing to self-serve or self-source deals here in the Midwest as well. So, those 4 approaches are allowing us to create larger deal flow. Now, we have to have capital ready to go for a couple of those, especially not the self-source stuff or the new asset classes, but more or less, working with other GPs. So we're taking action on that as well. But when I look at my 90-day sprint and I look at the things that we talked about, and by the way, got great feedback on the last episode in regards to how we broke down that 90 days in the GPS. Multiple people reached out to me for that GPS system. So if you missed that, shoot me a DM on LinkedIn or an email. Logan at ftwinvestmentsllc.com. I'll get you the downloadable version of the GPS, and it was cool to have, you know, some people reach out to me looking for that same system that we implement, which was really awesome, man. So all of those things, you know, I think when I look at my 90-day sprint and what I'm focused on, we took massive strategic action on those items and going to continue to do that, which will create the results that we're looking to accomplish. So the last big win, I'll say, and I've said that like 4 times, but the last big win I'll say, because I didn't write this down, it's just coming to my head, is, you know, it's starting to be very clear of what maybe the goal looks like next year. And I think that I have, you know, 2 kind of goals. One is to raise $100 million worth of equity, which just seems unreal to me, right? I mean, that just seems crazy. But the second goal is, you know, we'll do right around somewhere around that $115 million mark, depending on where it kind of lines up. Is I legitimately think we can get to 250 or 350 next year. And there's a few reasons why I think that is going to be achievable for us. First is the 4-headed approach that we just talked about. The second is, if we do have $100 million fund, I'll be able to find places to put that money in the right place. And then third is, if we're able to create this new business that I'm talking about in the right way, and we put the right people in place, you know, each one of those people have already done $100 million this year. And so with me and those other 2 folks that we're doing that, I think we can do more together, which will allow us, and that's, you know, that will allow us to get to 250 to 350 next year in a very cohesive manner. And so it started that when we started with that blank page and saying, okay, you got the big idea, you got the big goal, you know, you did $100 million or going to do $100 million this year. How do we 10x that, right? And, you know, $1 billion in a year, we'll get there. But realistically, you know, we threw the goal out there of 100 million this year, and we're taking the action to get there. To do 200 million next year would be 100% increase, right? I'm not talking about 100% increase. I'm talking about maybe a 200% increase. And I think that the who, not how methodology and framework is allowing me to see how that actually can come to fruition, which is super exciting, man. So boom, there's all the big wins from a staycation week that I'm not even necessarily working all the time, but lots of big wins and things to pull out from that week. Jerome, any thoughts on that, man?
Man, I got a lot of thoughts. I've been scribbling on this thing, trying to look stuff up on the side. But, you know, the first thing is, have you thought about the amount of days you've taken off this year compared to how your income has grown?
Well, I know you sent me that text message, and I have thought about that. And I don't remember a day that I took off last year.
You didn't.
So there's been an absolute 10x on the amount of time that I have taken for myself and my family this year. It doesn't have to be on trips necessarily or whatever, but just days that I'm there, days that I'm out playing golf, or days that I'm with Bella and T, or just Ezra, and so income has increased, and days that I've taken off has increased, right? And that's the methodology we both learned from Mark Acosta Rubio, right? Is his whole goal is to get you to work 90% less and make 90% more, something like that, right? And it sounds silly to talk about, but whenever you start breaking it down, it can be achievable, especially if you've got who's and you're not always focused on the hows, man.
That's outstanding. And I just want people to understand that it's not just the grind. When you started this mission, you was like, I don't just want to work harder and
Right.
increase my income. I want to figure out ways to compress time and eventually work myself, I don't want to say out the business, but my day-to-day responsibilities need to drop. I'm not always the person who's going to do the thing. So
right.
I think that was the first one. The other thing, so you guys are doing some ads now. Make sure that you know what it's costing you per lead.
Yes, absolutely.
And make sure you know what you can pay per lead,
mm-hmm.
right? Because when people start talking about raising money, it's like, well, if they give me $50,000, then It doesn't matter what it costs because it's not going to cost that much. Well, you don't make $50,000 on $50,000 investments,
Right.
right? And so there's a little bit more math that has to be done
Sure.
when people are digging in on that. So just make sure you're paying attention to that. And in the beginning, it's an experiment. You have no idea what you're going to get, but that's meaningful. It's almost 500 people in 3 months. I don't know. Most folks are getting anywhere close to that as far as an inbound funnel piece.
So one really easy way to kind of think through that is I think we're paying around $4 per lead right now. And so,
cheap.
It's cheap. And when I think about a new $100,000 investor, that person is worth about $20,000 to our company. Because if you are going to refer or pay a broker to raise money for you, depending on the size of the raise, you're going to pay 1% to 3%. So let's just break it down and say 2%. So $100,000, 2%, you got 20 grand. That's not even contemplating the repeat effect. And if you do it the right way, the referral piece of that investor as well. So I think that $4 per lead, and this is an experiment right now, right? And until we get this whole investor relations funnel and stage created that I talked about, we won't necessarily know what our conversion is, but we're working towards that, right? To be able to codify, okay, we had, over this 6 months, we had 700 people come through who have turned into investors. What levels are they in? And where do we think, what amount of capital do we think we're going to actually get out of those folks? And so I think that we'll be able to do that probably by the end of the first quarter to say, okay, we're paying $5 a lead. We've converted this amount and it's costing this much, and putting an ROI to that, extremely important. Absolutely.
And, some people are going to miss this, but I think it's core, right? You said I'm the catalyst for a lot of things. And so being the fire starter is the difference between somebody who is a compressor and one who's just along for the ride.
That's right.
And I've watched you. It's probably not appropriate to say it this way because we're being recorded, but I've watched you single-handedly build other people's businesses because they support yours.
That's right.
Like the majority, like over half of their business is because you engaged and invested through your efforts of directing people to them. And so you got to find that gift. You got to know what you're good at, man.
Right.
You got to know what you're good at. And for you, it's putting people together and showing them that this opportunity exists. And if they mind that opportunity, then they'll reap handsome benefits or rewards. It's really exciting to see. And so for those folks out there who aren't inherently inclined to do those things, you got to find somebody to team up with, whether it's a coach, whether it's a partner in your business, whatever it is. But that is going to be what takes your business to the next level. So, kudos to leaning into that, because that's not something a lot of people do. They just kind of shy away from it. But when you say, no, I'm really good at this, and this is my talent, it's my brilliance. We talked about brilliance a lot earlier in the year. Then it allows you to stay in that zone, right? It allows you to really go off and say, I don't need to spend my time doing this. I don't need to be making pictures on Canva to post on the internet or social media. I need to be over here talking to people about these opportunities and exploring ideas and concepts. I think I might want to say this till later, but I'll say it now and bring it back up because I want to be like Gary Vee and say, I told you so, but I want it on record. So, formulas come from experimentation, right? And a lot of people think that, no, I know the answer right away. I know exactly how this is going to work. And they don't want to go through the process of experimentation, having their hypothesis and then doing the test to see if it's true or not. And so what you guys are doing with the ads, you're doing it with some staff, you're doing it with business ideas. All of this experimentation is going to lead to a formula where the outcome's predictable, right? And that predictable outcome allows you to deploy capital against it so that you can monetize it.
That's right.
And this is the beauty of business that I think is just left out of every guru's book, because they want to tell you, hey, I got the process. You just need to bring your thing over here and then you'll have this result that you desire. But that transformation only happens on the backside of experimentation.
Exactly right, man. And the biggest thing there to pull out is the capacity constraint, right? I mean, there's so many different things that you can try to focus on. But unless you have the ability to implement and continue to implement on a consistent basis, you won't be able to create results. And what we've been able to do, or at least what I've been able to do, is say, look, I'm going to take less of this pie, but know that I'm eating the key lime, the cherry, the chocolate, and the raspberry, and saying I can have a piece of every single one of that. And it ultimately comes back to create a much larger pie for us, and a more diverse, pie, because when one goes down, I'm not worried because I have 4 or 5 other things that are kind of bringing food to the table. And so I think that's a big part of what you're saying there is being able to invest in people, because that's what opportunities are attached to, and be able to figure out how to make them successful. And that's vesting, right? I took this right from Robin Dreek's book. The first sign of predictive behavior is vesting. Does your success line up with my success? If I'm successful, are you successful? And when you can do that, that's where you see, folks having these businesses that are exploding because they have invested in other people that are running certain things that is also bringing them success. And you just have to, it's hard to do at the beginning, because especially if you have a financial problem or challenge that you're going through or something, you have to be able to say, I'm going to put that on hold. I'm going to look at this thing from a 3 to 5 year picture, not 3 to 5 month picture, And so, what Parker and Corey are really good at is, hey, if we're going to spend time on something, it needs to be able to scale. It needs to be able to step away from our time, and there needs to be a big need for it, which is super important when you're looking at spending time and resources towards a new activity. And so, very good point, man. Very good point right there. Anything else before I move into some learnings and ahas, man?
No. Let's
Okay.
go into the learnings.
Okay. So I got a couple learnings. I'm going to put it back on you at the end, but here's the number one is there's 2 actually, because we're going to get to the C3 formula. But before we do, I want to make sure that people keep stepping up to the plate. Keep stepping up to the plate. Think about baseball. The best hitters only get on base 3 out of 10 times. In the history of baseball, 3 out of 10 times. Those other 7 times, they get knocked down, they get out, they strike out, whatever. But you have to keep stepping up to the plate, and you have to trust the process. And so I've been focusing a lot on faith and trust and system and process, because you don't know which at bat is going to hit. You're gonna hit, and we don't hit a lot of home runs. We hit a lot of base hits and doubles, and you stack those on top of each other, and you start getting runs on the scoreboard. And so I guess the point being here is, pretty soon I'm going to look at the last 9 months of offers that we've put out and how many we've actually got on base on. And right before we got on the call here, I was like, man, I wonder how many units we've really purchased this year. And we'll finish between 500 and 600 units this year. And when I think back and I say, man, we did 900 last year or whatever, 500 to 600 this year. That's a decline. Well, we did 900 when nobody else was buying. We bought the same type of deals when everybody was buying. And that's not the easy part to get your head wrapped around. But when I think back to the baseball analogy and say, hey, you got to keep stepping up to the plate and keep making some hits, man, oh man, I'm very, very satisfied with what we've been able to complete on the acquisition process. So keep stepping up to the plate. Even if you struck out, 6 times, just know that if you're one of the best hitters, which you might not be yet, so you might strike out 9 times, but you can start getting up to that part of, 3 out of 10 times you're going to hit it. So that's the first thing. The second thing is the C3 formula. So confidence equals congruency plus commitment. Confidence equals congruency plus commitment. And when people always ask, what's it take? What's your secret to success? And I think I'm going to start saying the C3 formula, because confidence is built through congruency and it's built through commitment. And those two paired together, you cannot be stopped, whatever you're deciding to do. But you have to be committed. And that's what I'm saying with stepping up to the plate. This isn't for everybody. I've been writing a lot about on the blogs, and it's kind of controversial, but it is average. We're not here to be average. And that those points have been kind of, I think, pissing some people off a little bit. But at the end of the day, the data is what the data is. And we are not here to be average. You are not here to be average. You're here to be your unique, special self. And every single person is special and unique. And so if you're okay being average, what we call a jag, just another guy or just another girl, so be it. But that's not what this podcast is for. So, when the haters start coming out of the woodwork saying, hey, man, why can't you just be content? You've made it. You got all this stuff going on. Nah, man. Nah, your circle of influence is not mine. I am the lowest on the totem pole when it comes to my circle of influence and who I put myself around, and a whole nother world that you're not even aware of is happening every single day. And I'll make this point, and then I'm going to put it back to you. But this point was hit home when Taylor and I were hiking on Tuesday or Wednesday, I guess it was. We went up there and we hiked this mountain, Missouri mountain. So a hill. We hiked a hill, and we got up to it and we looked down, and there was the massive Missouri River, and it was just powerful. It was loud. The wind was blowing, and we just stood there and just stared at this murky abyss and we were just like, man, this is going on every single day. You saw all kinds of animals, saw a snake and all these birds and all that stuff. When I'm stuck in meetings, or I'm stuck in my own head, or I'm stuck in about some challenge, God has created this massive, hill with this amazing river that's pulling through, and it's powerful and it's omnipresent and it's always there and going on. It just gave me a perspective to remember that, man, there's so much more out there going on. There's so much, there's a world out there that you haven't even tapped into. And that's what we're trying to get across today is that piece of it. So congruency, commitment equals confidence. If you're a confident person, not confident on the outside, but on the inside, you won't be stopped, man. So that's the C3 methodology. That's keep stepping up to the plate. We reviewed the GPS a little bit. We'll do it every month just to kind of check in and track where we're at on the GPS to make sure you guys understand how we utilize that on a regular basis. But my man Jerome has been, and I'm gonna put you on the spot here, has been giving some leadership training and coaching to some high level folks. And I saw a post that you put out there, and I think you modeled Simon Sinek from Leaders Eat Last, right? And I want to hear a couple points of your talk yesterday, I believe it was, to some leaders, and maybe drop a couple nuggets of knowledge on what a leader is and why do leaders eat last, and how can I learn from that conversation and that training that you've done, man?
Yeah, so I think the first point to talk about is, when you're the alpha, right? If you're nervous going into a meeting, you're not the alpha.
Right.
Right? The other person's the alpha. But here's the thing: when you're the leader of your company and you've got people counting on you, they don't care how much money you make.
Yeah.
As long as they're taken care of. When they feel like you're sacrificing the people for the profits, is the moment that the tribe turns on the chiefs, right? And that, I think, is the undergirding for all of the decisions. the people are always more important than the profits, from my perspective, right? There's a lot of folks who are like, well, the ship won't be here if the people aren't here, or if we don't make the money. I hear you, but the moment that you reduce a person to a dollar sign is a moment that I think you have forfeited your opportunity to lead other people. We talked about this concept of being willing to come beneath the clouds. And so in that talk that Simon gave, it's about 45-minute talk. He talks about Johnny Bravo. And Johnny Bravo is a fighter pilot, and they're in conflict. There's some folks on the ground. They encounter fire, and the pilot dips down through the clouds, fires on the enemy to allow the folks to get to safety. And there's a bunch of other details in the story. But as leaders, are we willing to go from the place where the sun is shining, the sky is clear, into the dark place to help our people overcome the challenges that they're facing on a daily basis?
Yep.
And sure, you hire people to take care of things for you, but if you leave them in a dark place and you're not willing to come in and bring light or bring support, remove roadblocks, help them overcome stinking thinking, whatever it is, then again, I think you forfeit your opportunity to lead. And then there was a point about being addicted to your phone, right? Are you addicted to your phone, right? And it's like, well, what does that mean? Well, if you're walking from room to room with your phone, you might be addicted to it.
Yep.
If you look at your phone before you do anything else, you might be addicted to it. And the question really becomes, like, are you having true engagement and interaction? Are you being where your feet are, right? Logan, why don't you come up to my house so we can stare at our phones together? You stare at yours, I'll stare at mine. Like that, there's nothing exciting about that. And we pick on cell phones, but there was newspapers before that. I think some people still use books where
Yep.
they're surrounded by people that they care about, but they're not actually engaging with them because they're doing the other thing because it provides them some form of escape.
Yep.
And the last thing, and the thing that I think was most challenging, is how are we dealing with stress, and are the ways that we are dealing with that stress negatively impacting those around us? And so if you don't have a healthy mechanism for managing that, then by default, you're going to explode and there's going to be shrapnel with the people who are closest to you. There's just no way around it. And so, exploring great ways of coping with the stress. And, one thing that I didn't come in with, but somebody was in the meeting and they had this experience. And let's challenge the listeners here, man. So take out a piece of paper and create 4 boxes on that paper. In the top left corner, I want you to draw a picture of when you first felt stressed. First time you've ever felt stressed. And, I was like, well, I don't know what that is. I got to think really hard about it. But there's going to be a moment that comes above all the other ones. Top right, the last time you felt stressed. And so while the people were doing it, a couple of people drew conference room tables. I was like, man, I hope that's not this meeting. But fortunately, nobody said that was it. But you want to draw the last time you felt stress. Bottom left, you want to draw the place where you felt no stress. Zero. Nothing. Just totally relaxed, not a care in the world. And then the 4th box, I want you to draw what's the worst case scenario if you don't do something about your stress.
Yep.
And the takeaway here is, there's usually a connection between when you first felt stress and when you last felt stress. We don't change all that much in what we're sensitive to and what triggers us. The place where you don't feel any stress, you need to figure out how to spend more time doing that.
Yep.
Whatever that is, right? And then the last piece is, this is what you get. This is a consequence of doing nothing about what's going on in your world. And I will tell you that the people who were courageous enough to share really put us in a place where it's like, that was so thoughtful.
Mm-hmm.
And your level of reflection and the maturity that it takes to actually admit that just elevates the level of respect that I have for you as an individual.
Yeah.
And go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna kind of say what I heard was people, not profits. Be present and have great stress management strategies, man. I mean, that is so crucial as a leader. If your team sees you stressed out, man, guess what's going to happen? They're going to be stressed out. If my kids pick up that I'm stressed out, guess what? They're going to start crying, and I think that is so true, brother. That is, I can't agree more, man. And being a leader is something that I want to continue to focus on. And I read a book a while back called The Heart of Leadership. It was my favorite book on leadership. And it's like the heart is an acronym. So it's like hunger for wisdom and all these different things, and we'll bring that to fruition here pretty soon as well. But, I want to learn from you on how to lead people. And even if it's like something that is inevitable, right? From a guy like me, I typically am a leader. I have to be intentional about that on an ongoing basis. Yes. You can be a leader and get it started, but it's not easy to be a leader and continue to finish that. So thank you, Jerome, for dropping those knowledges, man. I bet those people in the room got so much out of that. We're going to end up with a quote here from James Clear, because I think this wraps up exactly what we've been talking about. The strategies that made you successful in the past will at some point reach their limit. Don't let your previous choices set your future ceiling. The willingness to try new ideas allows you to keep advancing. So keep stepping up to the plate, keep trying new ideas, and keep advancing, and you'll continue to compress. Any last thoughts, Jerome, before we wrap up today, my man?
No, this was outstanding, man. I like the C3 formula. It's good stuff.
We're going to keep iterating on that and making sure that we bring that to fruition. I'm excited for maybe the next iteration of the Compression Podcast and breaking down each letter for each month that we've got. And obviously the first one's going to be confidence. And so I think that starting the year out strong will be really important. Jerome, thanks again for joining the Compression Podcast. All of you listeners out there, again, if you want to get a copy of that GPS formula, reach out to me. Continue to share this, continue to reach out and giving us some feedback. We really appreciate it. And go finish strong and have a great week, guys. We'll talk soon. Hey, compressors, if something you heard struck you, made you feel a little bit uncomfortable, good. Head on over to compressionpodcast.com. And then you can also subscribe wherever you listen to your podcasts at. If you feel inclined to, please leave us a review. It's obviously helpful. But instead, I'm going to call you out today. I'm going to call you out and make sure that you do your part, sharing this message by sharing it with one person that might need to hear what we talked about today. Be great. Nothing else pays.